My name is Marlene Weaver, and I turned 70 years old last Thursday. I spent the morning the same way I spent most mornings, alone in my apartment overlooking the quiet bustle of downtown Seattle. The sun filtered through the blinds just enough to highlight the dust on the coffee table and the fresh lines on my face. I brewed coffee in the French press my son gave me 4 Mother's Days ago, back when he still remembered to do thoughtful things. The irony was not lost on me that might have been the last time he chose a gift with intention. I no longer expected surprises or phone calls. I had stopped setting a second plate at the table years ago. What I waited for now was much simpler. A text message, just one line, a half-hearted acknowledgement that I still existed. It came at 11:47 a.m. No one's getting gifts this year. We're cutting costs. Happy birthday, though. That was it. No call, no flowers, not even a cake. Just a bland, generic message from the same son I had once rocked to sleep through fevers and nightmares. Andrew Weaver is 38 now, a senior software engineer with a 6-figure salary, smart home in Redmond, and a beautiful wife named Melissa, a marketing executive with big brown eyes and bigger opinions. For the last 4 years, I have quietly watched them drift further into a world where I barely fit. But that message, that cold dismissal of my milestone birthday, was not a heartbreak. It was a mirror. For the first time, I saw clearly where I stood in my son's life. Somewhere between a memory and an obligation. And while most people say 70 is a time to slow down, to settle in, I realized something far different. 70 is when I stopped waiting to be loved the way I deserved. 70 is when I started choosing myself. And this year, I was about to choose very differently. Raising Andrew wasn't something I planned to do alone, but life rarely consults your plans. His father, Nathan Weaver, was a civil engineer with the Army Corps. He was brilliant, ambitious, and always packing. When Andrew was born, Nathan was deployed overseas. He didn't meet his son until the boy was almost 9 months old. And even then, it was brief. One long weekend sandwiched between assignments. I remember thinking the day I brought Andrew home from the hospital that I'd never seen anything so perfect. The way his tiny fingers curled around mine. The way he snuggled into my chest like he already knew he belonged there. I worked as a hospital administrator in those days, juggling 12-hour shifts and sleepless nights. Every soccer practice, every school recital, every late-night fever, it was me. I was there. Not because I had to be, but because I wouldn't have had it any other way. When Andrew made valedictorian, I cried in the car alone after his speech. Not because I wasn't proud. I was beyond proud. But because he hadn't looked at me once during it. His eyes had scanned the crowd, stopped on friends, teachers, even his girlfriend, but not me. Still, I brushed it off, told myself he was overwhelmed, that I was just being sensitive. He got into the University of Washington, majored in computer science. And I paid every dollar of tuition myself, turned down a promotion that would have taken me to Portland because he needed stability. I thought love meant showing up no matter what it cost. And for a while, it felt like it had worked. He'd call, he'd visit, he'd help me fix the garbage disposal or ask for my chili recipe when Melissa had a craving. It was subtle at first, the way he started skipping Sunday dinners. The way holidays were hard to schedule, the way Melissa's family suddenly became the default for every gathering. Then came the year he forgot my birthday entirely. When I called him that evening, he sounded distracted. He apologized, said it had slipped his mind. They'd been planning a surprise party for Melissa's mother. Her mother, Lorraine, had become the sun they all orbited around. She was younger than me, stylish in a loud sort of way, and very good at making herself the center of every conversation. The more I tried to connect, the more invisible I became. Until one day, I stopped trying, and Andrew didn't even notice. 3 weeks before my birthday, Andrew called with the kind of tone he used when he was about to ask for something big, but wanted it to sound casual. "Melissa's mom is in trouble," he began. I stayed quiet. That phrase had become a chorus in recent years. "She might lose the house," he continued. "There's a legal situation with her divorce settlement. Something about assets being contested. Her lawyer says she needs immediate support to hold on to the property. I waited. We're thinking of helping her out. Maybe 50 to 75,000, just until things are sorted. There it was, $75,000. More than I had ever spent on anything in the last 5 years combined. And he was offering it without hesitation to a woman who lived in a different state, who had never once called to thank me for a gift, who had never sent a holiday card. I remembered mentioning to Andrew a few months earlier that my building had levied a special assessment. I was stretching my budget to cover it. He had nodded, said something vague about interest rates, and changed the subject. But here he was now ready to transfer his savings to protect someone else's home. Family takes care of family, he said. Funny, I used to believe that too. I got off the phone without saying much. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there staring out the window, letting the clarity settle in. That weekend, I volunteered at a charity auction at the hospital where I used to work. An old colleague introduced me to a guest, retired, now a consultant, used to work with the FBI on white-collar cases. We made small talk, and then I mentioned casually that my son might be getting scammed by a very charming woman with a talent for convincing people she was helpless. He smiled, said he'd seen that story before, then offered to do a little digging just to be safe. I handed him Lorraine's full name, birth year, the city she lived in, public information. It was a whim, a quiet instinct, but deep down, I think I already knew. And what he found, it didn't just confirm my suspicions, it rewrote everything. The first thing he found was an Etsy store. Lorraine Green, the same woman who claimed she was financially devastated by divorce, had been running a successful handmade jewelry business for the last 7 years. Thousands of sales, hundreds of 5-star reviews, a steady stream of shipping confirmations, and customer testimonials. She even had a newsletter. Next came the real estate records. 2 properties in Arizona, both purchased under a trust in her name. Both rented out, one fully renovated and featured in a regional design blog. She had a Pinterest board titled Desert Flip Project that documented every tile, every paint swatch, every dollar spent. Then came the LinkedIn profile. Business consultant, it read, self-employed, specializing in strategic development for small family-owned firms, including notably Martinez & Sons, the construction company owned by her ex-husband. $15,000 a month in consulting fees. She wasn't broke, she wasn't struggling. She was hiding, but the final blow wasn't in the income streams. It was in the timing. 6 weeks earlier, Lorraine had filed for bankruptcy protection, claimed less than $15,000 in total assets. Cited financial hardship due to prolonged unemployment, declared under penalty of perjury that she had no income beyond minimal alimony. And yet at that exact moment, she was vacationing in Paris with Andrew and Melissa. I knew that because I saw it on Andrew's public Instagram account. The photo had been posted just hours before he sent me the cutting costs birthday text. The 3 of them, Andrew, Melissa, and Lorraine, standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, all smiles and coordinated coats. Lorraine wore what looked suspiciously like a designer jacket. Melissa's handbag was definitely Louis Vuitton. The caption read, "Mother-in-law surprised us with a dream trip. Paris. Family first. Blessed." I read it twice. Then I closed the app and opened my email. I still had the card of the investigator I met at the hospital event, but this time I didn't send it to him. I sent it to someone higher up. Agent Linda Walsh, IRS Criminal Investigations Division. 3 months ago, she had spoken at a seminar I attended for hospital retirees on fraud prevention for seniors. Afterward, I'd approached her and asked a few vague questions. She gave me her card and said, "If you ever come across anything that feels off, call me." So I did. I attached the screenshots, the Etsy store, the real estate listings, the vacation photo. I explained the timeline. Within 2 hours, she called me back. "Miss Weaver," she said, "this is exactly what we've been looking for." And just like that, I stopped being a forgotten mother and became a silent witness in a federal tax fraud investigation. I spent Saturday preparing a meal I hadn't made in years. Teriyaki salmon with jasmine rice and honey-glazed carrots. Andrew's favorite, back when Sunday dinner still meant something. I set the table with my mother's china and ironed the linen napkins he'd given me for Christmas 5 years ago. I lit 2 candles and placed a small voice recorder beside my water glass, half hidden behind the salt shaker. At exactly 6 o'clock Sunday evening, Andrew knocked on my door. He looked tired, jet-lagged, maybe just weighed down by the kind of stress that no vacation could solve. "Hey, Mom," he said, stepping inside. "Thanks for dinner. The flowers were beautiful." "You're welcome, sweetheart." I thought it'd be nice to catch up. We made small talk while he ate 2 full plates. I hadn't seen him eat that much since he was in college. There was something about home-cooked food that softened the sharpness in his voice, at least for a while. But I knew why he was really there. Sure enough, after dessert, he leaned back, swirling the wine in his glass. "There's something I need to talk to you about," he said. I nodded, letting the recorder do its quiet work. "It's about Lorraine. Things have gotten worse. Keizo, attorney, says the bankruptcy might not protect her assets. Okay. There's talk of a federal investigation." I raised my eyebrows slightly. "Federal? Sounds serious." "It is. She's terrified. Melissa's been crying for days. Apparently the IRS thinks she's been hiding income, which is ridiculous. You've seen how she lives?" I made a sympathetic sound, letting him fill the silence. "Her lawyer needs a retainer," he continued. $100,000. "We've got some savings and we're considering a home equity loan for the rest. $100,000. I repeated slowly. He nodded. "It's a lot. But family takes care of family, right? You always taught me that." I looked at him for a long moment. My son, my flesh and blood. And for all his intelligence, he was about to sink his life savings into defending a lie. "I'm glad you said that," I replied, "because I have something to show you." I reached for the laptop I'd placed nearby and opened a folder titled Family Records. His brow furrowed. "What's this?" "Lorraine's jewelry business, Carmen's Treasures, it's called. Thousands of transactions. Weekly shipping logs. And this." I clicked over to a Pinterest board. "Is her renovation work on the 2 rental properties in Arizona?" Andrew stared at the screen, confusion turning slowly into disbelief. "She told us she shut this down years ago." I clicked her LinkedIn profile next. "She's listed as a business consultant for her ex-husband's firm, $15,000 a month." And here, I opened her Instagram, are the Paris photos. "The trip you funded while she was under bankruptcy protection." Andrew's face went pale. He sat back, staring at the timeline laid bare before him. "This can't be real," he whispered. "It is," I said, "and the IRS knows. They've known for weeks. They just needed proof, and now they have it." He stood up so quickly his chair nearly toppled. "What did you do?" "I protected you, Andrew, from making the worst mistake of your life." His voice trembled. "You destroyed everything. My trust, my marriage, my family." I met his eyes. "No, Andrew. I saved everything that matters, and for the first time in a long time, I felt calm." The call came early Monday morning. Agent Linda Walsh's voice was crisp. "We executed the warrant at 6 o'clock a.m. Lorraine Green is in federal custody." I stood in my kitchen, coffee in hand, staring out over the quiet streets of Seattle. A part of me had imagined this moment, but the reality felt heavier, quieter. Was there any resistance? I asked. "None." She was stunned, completely unaware anyone had been building a case. "We recovered additional records from her home. Notebooks, spreadsheets, cash deposits. You were right to send what you did." I hung up and sat in silence, watching the steam rise from my cup. Less than 3 hours later, my phone rang again. Andrew, his voice was flat, stripped of all pretense. "She's been arrested." "I know," I said softly. "They're saying she owes over $400,000 in back taxes. That she falsified the bankruptcy filing. That she's been hiding income for 7 years." I said nothing. I wanted him to fill the silence with truth, not excuses. "Melissa's a wreck," he continued. "She didn't know. None of us knew." "I believe that," I said, and I did. Melissa was many things, but manipulative wasn't one of them. We talked to a lawyer this morning. He said if we had given her that money, we could have been charged as co-conspirators. There it was, the edge of the cliff. He almost stepped off. You were planning to give her everything, I said gently. Your savings, your equity, your future. A pause. Then why didn't you warn us? I did, just not in the way you wanted. He sighed. You could have told us privately. You didn't have to involve the government. And if I had, I asked, would you have believed me? Or would you have seen it as jealousy? A bitter old woman trying to tear down the new family you built? There was no response. He knew the answer. I needed you to see it clearly, I continued. And the only way was through undeniable evidence, through consequences. Another long pause. Melissa's meeting with the lawyer today. We're trying to figure out how to separate ourselves from this. You should, I said. You both should, and you should protect what's left. After we hung up, I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant either. What I felt was clarity, the kind that comes only after the storm has passed. When the wreckage settles and the outlines of what truly matters begin to emerge, I had saved my son. Whether or not he ever thanked me was irrelevant. The damage had been done, but not by me. And now it was time to see who could rebuild and who would remain buried beneath the lies. In the days that followed Lorraine's arrest, the story spread fast. News outlets picked it up. Headlines about a Seattle woman charged an $800,000 tax fraud scheme appeared on my TV. Even as I folded laundry, I didn't tell anyone I'd been involved, not even my neighbor, who always asked about Andrew. Some victories are meant to stay quiet. 3 days later, my phone rang. This time, it wasn't Andrew. It was Melissa. Her voice was steady. Miss Weaver, I hope it's okay that I called. Of course it is, I said. How are you holding up? I don't know. Everything feels fake. My mother lied to me. To everyone for years. She took a shaky breath. And I need to ask you something. Please be honest, all right? How long have you known? I considered softening the answer, but Melissa had been hurt enough. She didn't need more half-truths. I suspected for about 6 months. Confirmed everything 3 months ago. There was a long pause. So when Andrew told you about the loan, about the $100,000, you already knew it was all based on lies. Yes, and you didn't say anything. I gave you space to make your own decisions, I said gently. But I made sure those decisions wouldn't ruin you. Another silence, then quietly. I don't know whether to thank you or hate you. You don't have to do either, I said. You just have to move forward with what you know now. There was a rustle on the other end. Then Melissa's voice again, lower. I found something in Andrew's desk. He bought you a necklace for your birthday. He spent 2 hours choosing it. Receipt was still in the bag. But then my mother called again, asking for help with another legal bill. He decided not to give it to you. She paused. Would you still want it? I closed my eyes. A necklace I never received, a gesture that almost happened. Yes, I said. She brought it over the next day, a simple gold chain with a tiny heart. I fastened it around my neck as she stood in the doorway, eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry we pushed you away, she whispered. You didn't deserve that. No, I replied, but I understand it. And in that moment, I realized something. Sometimes being a mother means loving your child more than they love you back, and doing the right thing even when no one claps. Especially then. 3 weeks later, I attended a family wedding. Melissa had invited me despite Andrew's protest. He didn't speak to me the entire evening. He glanced my way a few times, then looked through me like I wasn't there. But I was there, in the same room as his friends, his uncles, the people who'd watched him grow up. I didn't go to cause a scene. I went because I belonged there, no less than anyone else. Toward the end of the reception, he finally approached. Why are you here? He asked, voice low but firm. Melissa invited me. I replied calmly. His jaw clenched. You don't get to show up like nothing happened? I looked him in the eye. Something did happen, Andrew. A criminal got caught. And you didn't lose everything because I made sure of it. You could have warned me. I did. Not in the way you wanted because I knew you wouldn't listen. He shook his head. It made me feel like a fool. No, I said gently. Lorraine did that. I just refused to let you stay blind. We stood in silence, surrounded by music and laughter we no longer shared. Then his final words. I don't think I can forgive you for this. I never asked you to, I said. I only asked you to survive it. As he walked away, I touched the necklace at my collarbone, the one he chose for me. Even if he never gave it, it rested there like proof that somewhere deep beneath pride and anger, love still flickered. But I wasn't waiting for it anymore. At 70, I had learned the cost of staying silent and the price of stepping in. And I had chosen the latter with no regret because real love doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it's cold, calculated, unappreciated, but it saves people anyway. And that's what I did. I saved my son. Even if he never says thank you, even if he never speaks to me again, I saved him. And I will sleep well knowing